Thank you. And you have arrived, if you didn't know, at 3 Joules. We also have some special guests tonight. The people that usually teach Thursday night the awesome in-depth Buddhist philosophy, the course that takes like 7 years to learn. And they're in the studio, Sarah and Earl. Yeah, don't debate with Earl, you will lose. Yeah. But he hates it if you don't debate, if you change the subject. Just a little tip there. So, traditionally, 3 Joules gets to teach this most incredible technology of mind through the lens of Tibetan Buddhist philosophers, and before them, Indian philosophers, all the way back to the Buddha. We're pretty nerdy around what's this investigation of mind and how we engage with reality. And so we study it pretty in depth here at 3 Joules, but not everybody's interested in that. And personally, I'm not interested in the academics of it. I'm only interested in the application of it. So if some creatures on the planet had some insight about undoing suffering, understanding how nature works and what our relationship to each other and the world is all about, and can we enter a state of blissful existence together that is nirvana-esque or enlightenment-esque. I'm interested in how to apply that in the day-to-day. So we nerd out at 3 Joules with very detailed courses like the Thursday, where you get to debate the finer points of the ultimate nature of reality and your consciousness in relation to it, which is awesome. Sorry about that. But I taught those courses for 7 years, and I studied them and tried to practice them for 20 years. And it really often feels like something stuck in my mind, some deep insights that some Buddhist had in the year 700 or 350, and it would never leave my mind, and it would help me in my day-to-day. Like a few things stuck, and really I've just been practicing the same thing for 20 years, meaning 1 year's worth of but trying to do it for 20 years. And it's been enough to help me maneuver really difficult things in life, where difficult things don't have to be triggering anymore. Difficult things can be an invitation to do beautiful things. And it also helped me understand why it's okay to enjoy and lean into beautiful things in who you are already, and what beautiful things appear to you and why they would. And so Tuesday nights, after teaching these courses for 7 years and trying to understand them at depth, and meditating for the better part of 25 years with lots of failures in between, on Tuesday nights now I get to just ramble, and which means I get to talk about how do I grab these ideas and actually place them in my everyday. Like, what happens when you wake up, and can you do something with this technology to shift the entire trajectory of your day? And so then we talk about those practices. What happens when a really horrible situation occurs and it's in your face about it, and all you want to do is either strangle someone or punch someone in the face or scream? What do you do with your mind then, and what are the consequences of doing that? Or what happens when reality smashes you in the face and you're like, have a moment of awakening, you go, oh my God, it was always like that and I never saw it. What's then the narrative you start building about who you are in the world? And what consequences does that have? And so Tuesday nights I get to talk about that from a little bit of my experience. And honestly, I can't say I've had many aha realizations. I've had a few moments where reality has slapped me in the face. And this study that I did for 20 years, or the meditations that I did for a long time, just came to the rescue and said, you don't have to be an ass in relationship, in response to a bad situation. Try this. And when I did, and I found that sentence from the year 700, pop into my head instead of punching someone in the face, I did something different, and the consequences were profound. But those moments really only occurred a few times. And I can say that I now I'm beginning to have a grasp of the certainty in the things that I've learned in this system. But at the same time, I came to this study and this philosophy sort of kicking and screaming, don't give me religion, don't give me dogma, don't tell me what to do. Someone please tell me what to do. Don't tell me what to do. I don't understand the world. Someone explain the world. Like with this kind of push-pull. So I'm a reluctant Buddhist. Yeah. And so I have this thing that I really don't want people to be Buddhists in that way. To have to subscribe to some group that says they're Buddhists. They're not, because there are people who are living this understanding who aren't walking around as Buddhists, but they're definitely Buddhists from the purest sense of the word, which means to wake up to how reality is occurring and engaging with reality, having woken up to the mistaken idea of how the world works. When you see that, then who gives a rat's what you call yourself? Like you have power over the thing that would have triggered you, or you understand why a bliss came. So all that to say, welcome to Tuesday night. I just see some new faces, and I wanted to let you know where you're at. And the beard has nothing to do with my Buddhist practice, but I know it looks cool on Instagram. Okay, so I'm aware of it. So people listen, oh, the guy with the beard, he must say something, he's got beads, meditator. So at least it gives people an invitation to do that. I'm very aware of it, and I'm competing with all the TikTok dancing. So I have to learn those. Dylan, your hair looks amazing, by the way. Oh, it doesn't, but it's not there. But your head looks amazing. So today, who was here last week? Put up your hand if you were here last week. Yeah, great. So the majority of us were here last week. And throughout the last few months, I've told you a little bit about the lady that started 3 Jewels some 26 years ago, Annie Pelma. So I want to dedicate tonight's class to her, because the day after we had class, Buddhists say she transitioned, non-Buddhists say she died, and she had her own experience of that whole thing, and I was pretty lucky for the last, couple of months to have regular conversations with her. Because as she was aware that she was no longer going to take treatment for cancer, that she was going to just go home and really hone in on her practice. And a bunch of people came together to support her doing that. She basically just lived a pretty awesome meditation until the last breath of her body moved. And I got a little insight into what that looked like for her. So I want to dedicate the class to her and talk to you a little bit about the conversations we had. If I can figure out where the hell I put the piece of paper that I wrote all the notes down on. But it's okay because I have a memory. So you might have a slight interpretation on the memory, damn it. Can you check my bag? It's one of the black backpacks that looks exactly like everyone else's black backpack. Yeah. And it's just one sheet of paper folded in half. But I want to tell you about Annie Pelma. And not because, well, first to honor her, but secondly to talk about what these practices actually mean through life and death. right? And hopefully you're all alive right now, yeah, if you're here, right? And whether you like it or not, that day's coming, yeah? And for those of you in meditation teacher training, we're going to do death contemplation, death meditation in 2 weeks, which is a really cool Buddhist thing to do, wake-uppers thing to do. It's like, hey, out of all the things that you're going to have to deal with, that one you probably should think about before it arrives, so you're not like, wah! Yeah, and in our culture, we don't talk about it. It's like, shh, don't say death. Like like you're inviting it, don't say it. Buddhists are like, have a look at it from this angle, look at it from that angle. What do you think about this? You know, and you really get familiar with that. So much so that you stop being frightened, and you can actually begin to analyze what is that whole process about? And what would my mind do in that moment? And can I train my mind to do something different? And can I understand the nature of my relationship to the world? And in meditating or thinking about that, can I have a different experience of that reality than I think I might have? And that's pretty cool when you think about it, if you're not running away mentally. And so I got the good fortune to talk with Annie Pelma. Annie means nun. Pelma is like her given name. Her real name is Debbie. Yeah, Debbie. And so I wanted to share a little bit about that. So we can say, okay, someone that started this place that now has over 40,000 visits a year. We teach yoga teacher training, meditation teacher training, meditation mentorship. We do retreats. We have God knows how many classes of yoga and meditation a day. And then we have this really tight-knit community who are like all about taking care of each other. And it's run by volunteers. Like, she started that as a passing thought walking past a shop on the Lower East Side. 25 years later, we get the opportunity to do this together. Talk about cause and effect. Talk about how, from a Buddhist perspective, karma grows. A tiny moment of mind. Oh, there's nothing there. I'm sure I brought it in. You know, it might be in the restroom. Oh no, you know where it is? It's in my pocket. Yeah. Did you check your pocket? Thank you so much for searching. Now I found it. If she hadn't done it, I wouldn't have found it.
It's like profound lessons from the scribble.
I have the paper. So I asked her, how did it get started? How did this place get started? But I want us to think about it. If one person's thought can turn into a physical building with 40,000 seats, minds connecting to Buddhist Dharma in a practical way, how did it start? Like, just one thought turns into this. How many thoughts do we have all the time? And where do they go? And what consequences do they have? This is a very obvious thing we see, but what are the predominant thoughts in your mind? Because the results are going to be similar to the cause. You know, are you walking around going, oh, my world's terrible? And then what world do you meet? Or, you know, this is hard. Like, whatever is narrative you're running is what you're going to run into. So I think that's lesson number one from Anila's starting of Three Jewels, for me anyway. And then I want to know I only ever knew her as a nun. I didn't know her as Debbie. You know, I knew her as Annie Pelma, Anila. So I asked her, you know, how'd you start? And she's from Barbados. And she wasn't very tall, she was short, but she had this like 6'20" friend. She says, my friend Celeste, did you ever meet Celeste? Yeah. She was tall, like this gorgeous black woman. She was like an Amazonian thing, you know, also from Barbados. And she was working as a jewelry diamond dealer in Phoenix, I think. And Debbie was looking for a part-time job. And so Celeste, her tall friend, says, oh, you should talk to this guy who's my boss. His name is Geshe Michael, yeah, who's running this startup diamond business, and it's doing really well. And so Geshe Michael at the time, who's one of my teachers, like heart teacher, he says that it was the busiest time for that company that he was working at. He's a monk, and his teacher told him to go out and put all these monk ideas into practice in the Western world, see what you can do with that. And so he started working in that. If you want to know about that, you read The Diamond Cutter, this book. And so Geshe Michael is saying, I just needed a ton of people that could work 24/7, because we had accounts after accounts, so I needed people that could work all the time. And then he gets this interview with Debbie. And Debbie, if anyone knows a little bit about Annie Pelma, Debbie, she was like fierce. Like I was a little scared every time I talked to her, but she was also this open, loving creature. But so she had fire, like she was fiery, and she would tell you things with her eyes. She's like, no. And you're like, anyway, so she sits down for an interview with Geshe Michael, and he's like, man, I need you to work all the time. She's like, no, I just want a part-time job. And he's like, no, we need someone that works. She's like, I'm not prepared to do it. So if you want me, just part-time. Yeah, and she told me a little bit about her side. I heard his side before, but I never heard her side. And she was like, he was pushy, and I wasn't having that. So I said no. He called me 2 weeks later. And she's like sort of proud, like I made him do that. And I did. I started part-time, and then I proved myself, and then eventually I ended up running $20 million department on quality controlling diamonds, yeah. And then she's like, I didn't know anything about this monk thing. I just wanted my money, and I was taking care of my grandma. And then one day I had to call him really late, and I called his number at home. No, you probably don't. You're all young. You dial the phone number, pick up the phone, the receiver, right? So she did that. Rosie, you know that, right? Yeah. Lily, I'm calling you out. Sorry, she's like, no, never heard of dial-up phones. Anyway, and someone answers the phone, and it says something monastery, and she's like, what? Like, why I'm looking for Michael, So anyway, she finds out that her boss is this like revered translator of Buddhist philosophy, the first American to graduate in the Tibetan system. And she told me that the thing that would stop her from having any success was being constantly angry. She's like, I was just angry all the time. And he wasn't, or they weren't. They, the Buddhists, she started calling them. And she's like, I don't know, I didn't have a faith, so I just tried it. And then I got ordained. Like, she just did it. She's like, went, became a nun, and then began studying, and then so here's this person who wants to control their anger. She looks at someone and says, oh, you're an example. And then there was also other serendipitous things that were happening. And then she's like, and that changed everything for me, to be able to control my anger. I didn't think that was possible. And so that gave her a bunch of insight into her capacity. And then she started studying. Eventually they walked past this shop that was all burnt down, and they opened up 3 jewels. I want to play you a clip of her telling me a few of these stories later. I spent a little bit of time editing the bad Zoom audio from Bowie, Arizona to New York on the cell phone. So you can hear it from her, but I just want to give you a taste that Buddhist practice isn't some dogma thing that you have to do and look cool on Instagram, or have to wear a specific color and then somehow that will change the the garbage in your mind. You know, like, you have to change the garbage in your mind. Calling yourself a Buddhist isn't going to do it. And the next thing that I remember she's saying is like, once I could figure that out, that I didn't have to get angry, she's like, everybody around Geshe Michael was just obsessed with studying. And if you're ever around Geshe Michael Roach, he never stops teaching something. Like, I'm 25 years following him, and I'm probably 10 years behind what he's producing. If I'm honest with myself, he's teaching stuff now. I don't even have time to catch up with that. He's translating Sanskrit, he's translating Tibetan, he's creating, like, he's digging up ancient texts that haven't been translated ever into English and putting them, like, he's doing that simultaneously. How many texts in the mixed nuts group? Like 15 texts simultaneously being translated with people that support him, and he's like managing all of them. Like, it's insane the amount of output this one person has. And she knew him early days. She started going to his classes as he's translating this Tibetan system for the very first time into the Western world, the complete 20-year curriculum of a Dalai Lama into English. And she's like, I couldn't keep up with it. And I relate to that. I'm like, I couldn't keep up with it. And so she says, well, Three Jewels just became a place where I just opened it up, gave people cups of tea, and I tried to practice something out of that immense collection of knowledge that was pouring out of him. She's like, I'm not a book person. And I figured after a while, there are lots of people around him just collecting books or collecting information. And when was I going to practice it? So for me, Three Jewels became a practice, she said, to actually try and shift my mind with all this wisdom, not just create a library of wisdom. And I thought that was pretty insightful, because I know there's lots of people at Three Jewels who have been around for 5, 6 years or the rest, and we collect information, right? There's this course and that course and this practice and that practice, and you can learn all the stuff you want to learn. You can put it all in your head. You can have the references. You can quote the quotes. But unless you're living it in your everyday and trying to transform the natural instincts of our everyday and minimize any harm we do to others, like, this is the essence of Buddhist thought, like, don't hurt others. Try and take care of others. Like, stop being shit. See if you can be nice. Do all that with some wisdom that understands how things really work, what your mind and your mental experience, how that is connected to your experience of reality. And once you see that link, that's called wisdom. And the thing we talk about here is karma and emptiness. Once you understand that, then not being a shithead takes on a different form. Not harming others takes on a different form. Taking care of others takes on a different form. And it becomes this sort of upward spiral where you begin to see the consequences of managing your untamed mind, taming it a little bit, enough for you to get a result. Yeah? Like, our minds are untamed. And so then all the practices make sense. Meditating makes sense. It's not like I'm meditating and some magic thing's going to happen outside of me. Meditating is like, can you stop bloody moving? Just stop it. Stop reacting to the whole world, like physically fidgeting like a mosquito. Like, stop it, stop. See, once you've stopped all the things you could stop, all the movement you have inside of you, which makes you move, stop that too. Like, try and reduce that. And then see the actual nature of your mind doing things before it does it. See all that, where the impulses come from. If you can get to that kind of stillness in meditation, where you're able to, like, third person, watch your mind have all these impulses as you run simulations of your life in meditation, meaning, I'm going to have a meeting with my boss tonight and I want to punch him in the face. Let's meditate on it. Here is me walking into the boss. Here is his face. My arm wants to reach out and punch him. Okay, I'll let my meditation imagine it once. Oh, that felt really good. What are the consequences of that behavior in my world? Maybe not so good. Yeah, so withdraw that, practice doing something different. Maybe if I listen, I could hear something different. And you sort of tame your mind that way. I mean, exaggerating and I'm making fun of the process, but you get the process, right? Our minds are so fast, we're catching up with our minds. And so once you get some wake-upist wisdom, which says, most everything in my reality comes from the way my mind interprets reality. What is reality ultimately? Once you start investigating that in the quietude of your meditation cushion, you can begin to redirect your mind's actions, or at least try and influence, and then you'll have some results. And once you can connect the results that you're having with the actions you're doing on the cushion, all of a sudden, probably for the first time ever, you will get the reins of your life back. You will have some real choice, not pretend choice, real choice to where your life goes. And that's sort of the essence of Anila's life. She went from an unruly, angry, untamed mind. She got a spark, and with that same fiery energy that she had anger, she just pointed it to understanding wisdom. And she's like, damn, if I can control my mind and all these people that come, maybe I can be calm, and let me try. But she wasn't just trying, she's just like, I'll be a nun now. And I'll open up a store and I'll give free tea to people. And one of the things she said is, when I moved down to the Lower East Side, she lived in the building where Three Jewels was and then opened up the shop. She's like, I didn't dress like a nun. And to me, that's another insight. She's like, I looked at all the people in our community, in the place I was about to step into. And I don't know if you were ever in the Lower East Side in 1994, 95. That's, do you remember Mayor Giuliani? She's like, okay. He was mayor at the time, and he had just implemented the zero tolerance thing, and a bunch of homeless people were being kicked out of parks. The subways were art pieces inside and out with graffiti. And Ani Palma just thought, we got to take care of these people too. And they were right near the Three Jewels. And so she opens up a studio like this. Imagine you come into her studio, you get a free cup of tea, you can rent or read any Buddhist book, you could buy any Buddhist book, you could rent it, I'm sure. No, she would give it to you probably. And then all these bums are hanging out outside. And then they want to hang out on the cushion, and they come in and she's like, oh, have a cup of tea on that cushion. Yeah? And then, I know it's uncomfortable, right? But she didn't see the discomfort. She's like, oh, everyone needs it. And then she's like, but then I saw that there was a problem because some of the new students didn't want to sit on the cushions that the homeless people sat on. So I did a bit of research. And I found some homeless shelters, again, dial up, 90-something. And so from the money I made from the coffee shop, from the tea or the bookstore, I would call a cab and make sure that they had a place to sleep that night. And so the homeless started sending their friends over, and so she became a trafficker of where to get a bed for the night. So they come get a cup of tea towards the evening, hang out with Ani Palma, who wasn't dressed as a nun because she wanted to look like everyone else, right? And this is, for me, really implementing the practices that Buddhism say are all super special. Can you put into practice kindness? I don't think I can do it to that limit. I tried. I get weirded out when I have to talk to a homeless person. I carry some money every now and then and I give it away. But I can't do what she did. She's like didn't see the trouble. She just saw someone that needed help and just actively engaged with it. And I don't know if that was before or after she started training as a nun, because I only ever met her as a nun. So for me to have that kind of wish to take care of others, and then she made this place, Three Jewels, that place, the trafficker of people getting a bed for the night. Yeah. And she's like, and then I realized I could make money. I'm like, what? She's like, if I told that story to the right people, we could get funding. And as a non-profit, we could use that funding to send more people to the thing. So I started telling that story. And then people started donating to 3 Jewels. And then 3 Jewels could do more of that, and we could have more people come to SIDS and whatever and whatever and whatever. I just thought you should know how sweet it is to hear someone turning a practice on in their life and the real consequences that had. For those of you that know a little bit about my story at 3 Jewels, Anipama and I talked a little bit about it. She didn't remember, and then when she remembered, we sort of cried a little. It was very special. But in 1995, 96, I don't really know. We say we started it in 96, but I can't really. That's just the name on the certificate of business or something. But I can't remember the year exactly. I'm going to a housewarming party. I'm this wild young photographer in New York who has to look like big hair and the whole thing in the 90s. And we had this friend housewarming party, and I went to go and get smashed that night. You know, it was and some weird coincidence had happened that week in relation to Buddhism. Zero interest on my part, but some things that were pretty weird, and that story takes a little longer. And I couldn't deny, I'm like, what's this Buddhism thing? I'm talking to my friend who we're walking to the party to, and he's like, dude, he's a surfer. He's like, dude, we should go study Buddhism. And I'm like, yeah, we should. And then we turn into the block where the party is, and there's this thing, 3 Jewels, Buddhist bookstore and tea house, opening night, all welcome. He's like, dude, check out the Buddhist bookstore. And we walk into the party, and she meets me at the door. It was Annie Pelma. And she grabs my hand, and she sees my housewarming gift for my friend to the party I was going to go get smashed at. She's like, you brought a gift. I'm like, yes. She drags me all the way to the back of the building, and there's all these monks and nuns, and I'm like, is it a dress-up party? Is it the same party? And she takes me to that statue of Tara, that green Tara over there. That's Annie Pelma there next to the pumpkins, no, the oranges. Yeah. And she takes me to that statue, and she's like, you should make offerings to Tara. Like, I'm not a Buddhist. On the contrary, I'm anti-dogma. I'm like, I'm in a weird place, but what's the third Buddhist thing, coincidence, all about? So I had bought 2 gifts. I thought I'd keep the one that my friend didn't want. So she's like, yeah, put it over here. So I gave her one of the gifts. She reaches over and makes me make an offering to her. And then I'm like, I might as well stay and ask, what the hell is this Buddhism thing? And I'm like, what's Buddhism? And she's like, oh, I don't know, ask her. And she points to this 17-year-old angelic child in the corner, right? Her name was Aura, yeah, Aura. And I'm like having a cup of tea with her awkwardly. My friend's like, I'm going to the party. I'm like, I'll go in a minute. And I'm like having a cup of tea. All the Buddhists are doing boring Buddhist things, which is talking about books. And I'm like, what's Buddhism? You know? And I'm expecting the answer and then going to the party. And Aura just, I don't know, she was angelic. Her eyes are like these brown, doughy eyes. And she's like hypnotic. And I'm in another world. And she's like, it's difficult to explain. It's got to do. And I'm like, where am I? Like, I'm really like something weird's going on. Anyway, I exit that place fast. I go to the party, totally smashed, awesome party. Go home, wake up with a headache. But that night I dreamt. And I dreamt a bizarre dream that a year or so later I get to find out is visual reference to this Buddhist text called the Lamrim, the Lamtso Namsum, the 3 principal paths. The imagery in the dream is uncannily precise to a couple of stanzas in that text. So much so that I still think it's the most magical thing, one of the most magical things that have happened to me. But regardless, in that dream, I'm being chased by 3 shadows, and I get a chance to dash and avoid the shadows, and there's this field, and I'm like, damn, I'm exposed, and I'm on my belly trying to crawl like, I don't know, some army person through this crop of eggplants. That has nothing to do with Buddhism. Like zero. I've tried. And behind an eggplant bush, aura pops up, like one of those pop-up things. It's like, Hector, you found home. Home is this way. And she points, and I see the skyline of New York City. And in the middle of it is this massive monastery. 3 jewels. And at the time, I was illegal in New York. I overstayed my welcome, and I didn't feel like I was home. And I wanted to run away, and I didn't know what to do, and I don't know. And that dream, for me, was a changing moment where not only did I drop a whole bunch of behavior that I was doing to cause my own problems, but I got a kind of certainty that I've got something to connect to here. And even though I didn't understand it, I should investigate it. So as hungover as I was, I went back to 3 Jewels and I saw Annie Palma. And I brought her a book that I had picked up in New York the first day I'd arrived, which was Principal Teachings of Tibetan Buddhist Sects. And I had picked it up in the basement of the place I was living because it looked old and I could probably sell it for money. And I had it, like, what is this book? And I give it to her, and she's like, we've been looking for a copy of this book forever. Blah, blah. Coincidence. Now I'm stuck at 3 Jewels teaching Buddhism. Telling the story of the lady that started it. And my life has changed from that time. And it's changed in a way that hers has changed also. So all this story is an invitation to say, please don't confuse Buddhism with dogma or a thing you have to do or a dress code you have to adhere to or a badge you have to wear. There's real wisdom from real people who have put on the mental clothes, or I don't know, the posture of investigating their reality in the way that for 2,500 years people have been investigating in this Buddhist tradition, which can give results if you actually do something with them. And what to do with them? Well, at every turn, every day, you engage your life in some way. The way you engage your life, the way your mind conceives, understands the thing you're doing will have consequences for you in your life. And once you see that is no longer out there what you do and have to change and organize the world for you just to be so happy and to avoid being unhappy, that actually all that's already set in stone. It's like walking into a forest of massive trees and going, fuck, I didn't want pines. Like, it's too late. It's too late if you're in the middle of a forest of pines to say, I don't want pines. But you have to get through the forest of pines and begin to replant that ground and not spread more pine seeds, which will create more pine forests. You have to begin to transform the forest that you find yourself in by actively choosing what your mind does in relationship to the forest you're walking through. So if you're walking through anger and being angry, you're just creating more angry forest. And so at the very least, stop the anger, stop the hatred, stop the negativity, don't harm. Do that as a mental response to the terrible forest you find yourself in. but you're beginning to shift the forest for you. And at the very best, go ahead and transform what you're planting in response to the terrible forest. Start to sneak in eucalyptus, I don't know, I'm making up trees types now. Begin to actively choose what seeds you put into the garden of your mind, and then wait, but keep planting. Because nothing planted immediately comes about. And that's the mistake. The mistake is thinking that what I do right now has an immediate response. It's like we're in a movie with a soundtrack off track. We're watching the movie, but the soundtrack's like from before. And until it catches up, you're not going to get in sync. I don't know if that metaphor, do Buddhism, yeah? There's a couple of other things that she highlighted. She said that the thing that broke her in a good way was understanding service. That at the beginning of opening the shop, she bossed everybody around and told everybody what to do, and she didn't get it immediately, but she goes, the biggest lesson I got out of 3 Jewels and running 3 Jewels is being of service to anyone and everyone that walked in, like the homeless folk that I talked about. She's like, it humbled me, first and foremost, really humbled me. And in that humility, I could see the connection between me and others as being equal. Like everyone deserves the happiness I'm seeking. I don't get to direct everybody's happiness and be the boss of everything. It really made me humble to look and listen. And just by listening, both opened me up and then opened up the people around me. And then we can actually have a real conversation. And then the other thing I think you should know about Dharma is she did 2 3-year, 3-month, and 3-day silent retreats. 2. Yeah. So although she kept saying, I'm not a book person, I'm not a studious person, she knew her stuff. She lived it day after day with the same ferocity as she was angry before, right? So the same energy she maintained. She wasn't like the sweet nun. I mean, when you hear nun, you're like, oh, sweet nun. But she grew to be a deep, deep practitioner, and then took on one particular practice, that of green Tara, yeah, and then turned it into the technology of how her mind would engage with reality. So if you've come to 3 Jewels, now for the practitioners that have been studying this stuff, and if you haven't been studying this stuff, I hope you don't hear it as too weird, yeah. But because we study the emptiness of things, that things are not what they appear, that ultimately you can't find a shred of nature in whatever thing you're engaging with. You can't say that that object that we call a pen is by its nature a pen, because dogs see it as a chew toy. When you go looking for pen in that cylinder, you come up empty. When you go looking, which part of that has pen in it? Which one is radiating pen? That's what Buddhists do in their heads, right? They try and analyze it reality logically and then apply it to a reality. So we use this example of the pen at 3 Jewels to try and investigate the nature of where things come from. Is there any penness in that thing? And as soon as you introduce a dog looking at the same object, that dog ain't seeing pen. That dog is salivating. That dog can't wait to chew on it. That object ain't pen to be chewed. That object is chew toy with some stupid human trying to make it into some writing instrument. The human's wrong from the point of view of the dog, right? And so the dog will bite the human if he tries to take away his chew toy. But the human will hit the dog because he's trying to destroy a perfectly good pen. And both realities are true for the human and for the dog. There really is a pen for humans. There really is a chew toy for dogs. And both realities are false. They're an illusion. when looking at the object by itself. So Buddhists nerd out on that, and that gets applied to everything, to plant, to this and that. So the big question then is, what made it that nature? What made it chutoi? What made it pen? And you have to say, it's not in the substance out there, it's in the relationship between the person or the being and the object. And that whole experience of that object as pen or chutoi comes from the consciousness or the mind of the engager, the perceiver, us. And so practitioners of wake-upism get obsessed at understanding exactly what do I have to do to plant just the right seeds in my forest of my mind to experience everything which doesn't have a nature like it appears, and transform it into the most ultimate beautiful thing. Does that make some sense, what I just said? Yeah? On that basis, if you get that, you then eventually go, oh, let's change plants into edible things, or let's change chairs into rockets, or begin to plant seeds to change my reality. It's not quite like that. But you get really busy, especially on a death meditation, on a death contemplation. You're like, how long do I have to play with this technology that things don't have a nature, and my actions in the world begin to plant the seeds that create my nature? How long do I have to play and plant and change my universe? And the answer is, like, how long before you die? How long before you die? Like, we don't know, really, if we had to ask. How long before you get bad news? I don't know. Is it when you're old, like me? No, people die young. Is it when you get sick? Is it when you get cancer? Not always. Some people get cancer, they don't die. And so it's definitely coming, but you don't know when. And then we just discovered on this side of the world that the way you engage with your world plants mental constructs, seeds, frames that create the reality you step into. Two toys or pens. And so what do you do with those two things? You got no time. You can transform everything. What are you going to start transforming? Let's make money. Money's good, right? Let's have better relationships. Yeah, relationships are good. But after a while, you begin to see, and Anila said this, she's like, the big game is identity. Who are you? Are you just a human? Are you just mortal? Is death just terrible? Or are all those things just like the pen? Empty of a nature. Can you find a terrible thing in the ceasing of the body? Is the feeling that we think about death and dying terrible by its nature? Is it a pen or a chew toy? And then for years, in those 3-year retreats, she began to question and habituate a practice that helped her identify with living and dying completely different. And I don't know what the hell she did for 6 years. Like, I have no idea, I wasn't there. But I got to see her in the last few weeks of her life here. And her mind pristinely, stunningly, was not a dying human. I don't know what experience her consciousness will continue to have. I just know that she saw it as magic. One of the quotes she said, I'm like, how are you feeling today? It was one of the later calls I had. Maybe a month before she passed. And she said, it's an upward spiral. People are showing up, Hector. And I get to serve them. And then she told me a story. I think her name was Betty. She's like, I have this quilting friend in Tucson, I think. It was, anyway, maybe Wilcox or some middle of nowhere, Arizona place. Yeah. And she's like, I forgot that she doesn't know my whole spiritual life. We're just quilting buddies, and I just serve the quilting group. And when she heard I got sick, she came over to hang out. And then Betty's looking around and everyone's like bowing to Ani Palma, and there's pictures of the Dalai Lama, and there's like all these Buddhist statues. And for Buddhists, there's this water offerings that Buddhists do every morning, and they imagine certain things to plant certain seeds. And Anila has water bowls everywhere, like toilet and like everywhere. There's these water bowl offerings. She's like, and I make them all make water bowl offerings. And now Betty's making water bowl offerings. So Betty comes over and she's like, do I need to change the water on these Buddhist things? And she's like, yeah, change the water. So she's like, and these are angels. So she was living in a place as her body was withdrawing, as her reality began to shrink into her room and her bed. And she was surrounded by what I saw as friends of mine that I've meditated with in the past. But she saw as an, quote, upward spiral of angels around me. The way she talked about what was happening to her, she never said cancer. She never said I'm dying. She wasn't avoiding it like I would. I'm like, oh, I think I'm transitioning. No, she'd be like, for real, this thing is happening to me and it's blissful in her mind. Now you can't do that on the moment, right? It's like live a normal life, go get pissed, go, oh shit, I'm a Buddha. Like it's not something you can do. It takes gom for those that are doing meditation teachers. It takes habituation. You need to habituate until, and initially it is contrived, it's pretend, it's make-believe. Of course it's a bloody pen, you stupid dog, but okay, I can think that it could be empty of a nature and could be more if your seeds were different. But it's a bloody pen, you stupid dog. Like you start by pretending and looking at it through logic that reality isn't what it seems. And you do that enough times, and then eventually the contrived becomes uncontrived. And you begin to actually see that what you've been planting comes to be. That's a real wake-upist in my mind. Someone that can do that with whatever problem or opportunity that faces you, that you face. And I think Ani Palma did that beautifully. Like stunning. So if you don't mind, I'm going to show, there's plenty of more things that I didn't read on the thing. I hope that gave you some insight on Buddhisty, blah, 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 blah. Who cares, right? But your consciousness, what you do with your mind, with your words, with your actions, leaves an imprint in you, which then you're forced to live later, whether you like it or not. And she got to live the most beautiful, what we call ending, and for her it seemed like a beginning. For real, not woo-woo. For real, yeah. So let me just see if I can play something I prepared earlier. Here we go. And then we'll say goodbye to the folk online, and then we say hello to the folk that you don't read my texts. And then was there anything naughty there? I don't have naughty texts. What are you talking about? Okay, here we go. Rehearsal slideshow. Can you see a blank screen online? Give me thumbs up. Thank you, Rosie. Oh, I love you, Mom. Okay, and I'm going to mute myself, but give me a thumbs up if you can hear. It's only 2 minutes. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear the audio.
It was what Tree Jewels is. And through that little place grew, kept growing. I remember I would sit in the window on the off days, and people would say, what's this Tree Jewels, a jewelry store? Because I named it. They said, well, what's this place? Is it a jewelry store? And I remember the day Richard Gere walks in, because he knows that it's Buddhist. Because when I named it, I said, people that are Buddhists will know it's Buddhist. People that are not Buddhist, they wonder what it is. that always was fun to see another Buddhists come in and chat. And the most important thing I would say about starting the three jewels was I didn't know how to listen. And the minute that I learned to focus on them 100%, they just open up. So I really learned how to listen from those students to be a better teacher. It was that deep listening. And I learned all of that in the three jewels. When I was leaving to go into retreat, I was very sad. I was not happy. I was very, very sad. Because I think it's the best part of my life. It made me happy to make people happy. And that is the keystone of my life.
Thank you for watching that and sharing that moment with me. And maybe we do this thing that we do at Three Jewels. We dedicate any goodness that we had in our minds, any good thing that arose in our heart, and we just imagine that it can reach people that need that right now. So if you have friends who need a little hope, if it's your future self or if it's your past self too, I just invite you just to imagine there is goodness to be had in the world. It ain't coming from out there. The goodness that you can have is already inside of you. You just need to turn it on. And I don't know what it is for you. I know for me it's if I'm not here taking care of Three Jewels and the people here, I'll end up like a shithead. You know, like if I don't try to be of some service, I'll be selfish. It's our nature, it's our instinct. And so it's sort of selfish of me to want to be here all the time because it tames me, it invites me, it reminds me. So I want to thank you for listening, and I thank you for a special Tuesday evening class dedicated to Anila, and know that like her, there are many, many people who are transforming their inner world and get to meet magic later on in their lives, and you're probably one of them if you're here. End of the Hector show. Thank you, everyone. Good night online. We're going to hang out and talk about you now. Bye, Anastasia. Bye, Emily.